My name's George Miller, 58 years old, retired highway construction worker. I used to build the roads other people drive on. These days, I mostly sit on my porch outside Wichita, listening to the wind scrape against the fields and the creak of the old rocking chair my late wife picked out. When I got hurt on the job 12 years ago, shattered hip, steel pins still in there, the company settled. Between that and Margaret's pension from the Postal Service, we managed to live decent. After she passed 3 years back, I promised I'd protect what she left. That pension was her pride, a lifetime of night shifts and cold coffee so we'd never worry when we got old. Life after her was quiet. Too quiet. Mornings with black coffee, afternoons fixing small engines for neighbors, evenings staring at her photo by the kitchen window. The kind of silence that's almost peaceful until someone decides to break it. That someone was my brother-in-law, Brad. Brad had always been a talker, slick hair, firm handshake, liked to remind everyone he did well in finance. For years we got along fine, mostly because I kept my distance. But lately he'd been showing up uninvited, smiling too wide. "George, you shouldn't be handling all those papers yourself," he said one afternoon, setting a box of donuts on my counter. "I could help manage the pension account, make sure it's growing instead of just sitting." I told him thanks, but no thanks. He waved it off with that salesman laugh. "Come on, we're family. Let me take some weight off your shoulders." At first it seemed harmless. A few calls about investment tips, a random check-in about whether I'd gotten the latest bank statement. Then one day, he brought over a bottle of scotch that cost more than my truck's tires and asked me to review some paperwork together. "Nothing urgent," he said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. "Just routine pension stuff." Something in his tone itched at me, the way a splinter does under skin. That night, I poured a glass of that expensive scotch, sat in my chair, and stared at the envelope. I hadn't opened it yet, but the return address said Federal Benefits Administration. When I finally tore it open, my name was printed clean across the top, right above a line where my signature already sat. The papers shook in my hands before I even finished the first page. Power of attorney, authorization for fund transfer. It claimed I'd given Bradley Carter, my brother-in-law, permission to oversee and withdraw from the Miller Pension Trust as needed. At the bottom, a signature curved across the line. My name, or what looked like it. But it wasn't mine. I'd signed my name on time cards, injury reports, hospital waivers. 40 years of the same careful strokes. This one leaned wrong, letters cramped together, like someone trying to copy handwriting from memory. I felt my chest tighten. If this thing was filed, Brad had full control, my wife's pension, her life's work, gone with a pen. By morning I was parked outside his office downtown, still in my flannel and work boots. He was behind his desk, flashing that too white grin when I walked in. "George, you look tense, buddy. Everything all right?" I dropped the papers on his mahogany desk. "You want to tell me what this is?" He skimmed the pages, fake surprise blooming like a bad actor's smile. "Oh, that? Standard paperwork. You must have forgotten. We talked about setting up online access, so I could help with deposits, transfers." "I never signed this," I snapped. "And you damn well know it." He leaned back, folding his hands behind his head. "George, you've been through a lot. Maybe you don't remember. These things happen with trauma, medication. Don't gaslight me, Brad." I jabbed a finger at the line. "That's not my hand." His smirk hardened. "Well, the pension office seems to think it is. They verified the signature. So maybe you should relax before someone starts thinking you're unstable. It's bad optics for a man living off federal benefits. The words hit like gravel in my teeth. I stared at him for a long second, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. You think I won't fight this? Brad's smile never wavered. You think you can? I gathered the papers, slow and steady. You stole from the wrong man. He laughed, a dry, hollow sound that followed me all the way to the elevator. At the bottom floor, I turned once more, voice low but sharp enough to cut. This is just the beginning. Sunday dinners at Lisa's house used to be easy. She'd cook too much, I'd eat too much, and Brad would drone on about real estate until she rolled her eyes. This one was different. The air felt thick, like the whole house knew what I'd brought in my pocket. When the plates were set, I reached into my jacket and laid the forged authorization on the table between the mashed potatoes and the dinner rolls. Lisa blinked. George, what's that? Brad's smile twitched, but he played dumb. Just some paperwork your brother's confused about. Confused? I barked out a bitter laugh. You forged my name on pension documents, Brad. You gave yourself access to money that isn't yours. Lisa froze, fork halfway to her mouth. Brad, what's he talking about? Brad kept his tone syrup smooth. Honey, I told you. George asked me to help with some forms online. He must have forgotten. You know how worked up he gets over paperwork. I didn't ask you for a damn thing, I snapped. I've signed my name the same way for 40 years. That's not it. Lisa's gaze flicked between us. You're sure, George? Maybe it was during your surgery recovery. You were on pain meds. Brad jumped in before I could speak. Exactly. I told him I'd take care of it while he rested. Guess he doesn't remember. No one's blaming him. It's been a tough few years. The way he said it, gentle, pitying, made my stomach twist. He wasn't just lying. He was rewriting my memory right in front of my sister. Lisa, I said quietly, you've seen my signature on every birthday card since you were 10. Look at that line and tell me that's mine. She hesitated, studying the paper. The silence stretched long enough to make the walls hum. It looks off, she whispered. But Brad's hand slid over hers. Sweetheart, your brother's been under stress. You don't have to entertain this nonsense. He's just scared. I felt heat crawl up my neck. You're twisting her against me. Brad's smile sharpened. I'm protecting her from a man who can't tell what he's signed anymore. The room went silent. The only sound was the soft tick of the dining room clock. I leaned back, eyes locked on him. You sure you want to keep lying in front of her? He tilted his head, that smug look never leaving. Or maybe, he said softly, you just can't remember what's true anymore, old man. By the next week, the whispers started to spread like oil on water. At the diner, 2 old co-workers stopped talking the second I walked in. At the hardware store, the cashier smiled too politely and offered to help me count change. Even Pastor Kent paused mid-sentence during Sunday service when I forgot the hymn number. Brad's story had done its work. Poor George, they said. Can't remember half of what he signs anymore. Good thing his brother-in-law's helping with the finances. Every word landed like grit in my teeth. He wasn't just stealing my pension. He was stealing my reputation, piece by piece. On Wednesday, I drove to the union office to ask about the withdrawal notice. The clerk, a kid who could have been my grandson, gave me that soft tone people reserve for the dying. Mr. Miller, he said gently, your co-signer already verified the funds transfer. Maybe check with your family? Family. That word stung worse than the metal rod in my hip. When I got home, There was a sticky note on my door in Brad's neat handwriting. "Stop embarrassing yourself. It's handled." I tore it off, crumpled it, and hurled it into the yard. My chest felt hollow. For the first time since Margaret died, I thought maybe he'd actually win. Then I heard a truck engine idle by the fence line. A familiar voice called out, "You gonna let that snake write your story, Miller?" I turned. There he was, Tommy Rodriguez. Same crooked grin, same scar on his forearm from when we built the Wichita bypass 20 years ago. "Tommy? Hell, I thought you moved to Texas." He climbed out, hands in his jacket pockets. "I did, but bad news travels faster than good bourbon. Heard Brad's painting you as senile." I grunted. "Guess he's doing a damn fine job." Tommy stepped closer, eyes hard. "Not to everyone. I still know a lie when I smell one. You forget, I used to cash paychecks with you every Friday for 20 years. You never once missed a signature." A laugh broke out of me, sharp and bitter. "You believe me then?" "Every word," he said. "And I've got ears at the bank. The teller handling your pension withdrawals? She's uneasy. Says the guy who came in with your forms looked nothing like you." I straightened up. "You can find her?" Tommy's grin turned sly. "Already did. She owes me a favor." He tossed a small recorder onto my porch table. "You want to hear what she told me about your helpful brother-in-law?" 2 days later, I drove into town to check my account in person. The teller smiled politely, the way people do when they're about to ruin your day. "I'm sorry, Mr. Miller," she said, tapping her keyboard. "The account access is restricted. It's marked as co-managed under power of attorney by a Mr. Bradley Carter. We can't authorize withdrawals without both signatures." Both signatures. I stared at her, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. "That's my pension. My name's on the checks. You think I'd hand that to someone else?" Her smile tightened. "Sir, the authorization is on file. Maybe you could speak with your family about it." That word again. Family. By the time I walked out, my hands were shaking. I'd worked 40 years, lost my hip, lost my wife, and now I couldn't even touch the money meant to keep me alive. When I got home, my mailbox was stuffed with bills, electric, medical, and one letter from the insurance office. "Your payment is overdue." Inside the house, the fridge hummed, half empty. The old clock ticked slow. I heated a can of soup on the stove, sat at the table surrounded by Margaret's old ledgers and a mountain of useless paperwork. Steam rose and faded, same as my breath. For a second, I thought about her. The nights she'd fall asleep balancing those books, saying, "George, one day this pension will let us rest easy." Now it was just me, a bowl of cold soup and a stack of forged documents saying I didn't exist. The loneliness pressed heavy, almost physical. Every sound in the house echoed back, empty, hollow, final. I pressed my palms flat on the table. "He took everything, Maggie," I whispered. "Your work, our peace, my name." From outside came the crunch of tires on gravel. Headlights swept through the window, cutting across the kitchen wall. I tensed, then heard the familiar slam of an old truck door. Tommy's voice called from the porch. "You done feeling sorry for yourself, Miller?" He stepped inside, tossing a small flash drive onto the table. "Because I've got something that'll make you mad enough to fight." Tommy slid the flash drive into my old laptop. The screen flickered, speakers crackled, and then I heard it. Brad's voice. "Yeah, it's done. He won't even notice until it's gone. The old guy's barely keeping his bills straight. By the time he catches on, I'll have the rest of it moved. IRS won't look twice. Everything's under his name anyway." Another voice chuckled on the recording. You sure he won't come after you? Brad laughed, low and smug. Come after me, please. He's old, broke, and tired. You can't fight what you can't prove. The recording stopped. Silence filled the kitchen. My hand clenched around the edge of the table until my knuckles turned white. Tommy leaned back, watching me. He's been bragging in bars. Thinks you're already beaten. I swallowed hard. My reflection in the dark window looked like a stranger. Same face, but harder. He's taken everything, Tommy. Everything Margaret built. Then take it back, he said. You've got the voice. Now we find the paper. The right paper. I stared at the pile of bills, the fake letters, the quiet house. For weeks, I'd let Brad write the story. Let him turn me into a helpless old man. But I wasn't done yet. I stood, pushing my chair back slow. He thinks I'm too tired to fight. He's about to find out what a tired man can do when you take his piece. Tommy grinned, teeth flashing in the dim light. That's the George I remember. So what's the play? I grabbed Margaret's ledger off the counter, flipped it open to a blank page, and clicked a pen. Step 1, we find the original pension deed. Step 2, we make him talk. Step 3, we bring in someone who'll make the law listen. Tommy nodded. I know a woman at the pension office. She owes me a favor. Might be able to dig that paperwork up. The anger inside me cooled into something sharper. Focus. Purpose. I looked up from the ledger. Good, because tomorrow morning, Brad Carter's paper trail starts burning. Tommy and I sat at my kitchen table like we used to at job sites. Coffee mugs, paperwork, and a notepad between us, instead of blueprints. Outside, the wind hissed against the windows, carrying that November chill that makes old bones ache. All right, Tommy said, flipping open a folder. Step 1, we get a certified copy of your pension agreement from the Federal Benefits Office. That's the foundation. Without that, we've got nothing solid. I nodded, writing it down. My handwriting was rough, but steady. Step 2, we make him talk. He's too proud not to brag. If we can get him on tape admitting he used my name, that's evidence. Exactly, Tommy said, pulling a small voice recorder from his jacket. This time we bait him careful. Maybe talk about another payout coming soon. He won't be able to resist bragging he's already lined up to manage it. I leaned forward. Step 3? We find someone on the inside, Tommy said. Bank, IRS, whoever's seen the paper trail. Someone who can swear under oath you never signed anything. The plan sounded impossible when he laid it out, but the logic was iron. Every move matched the next like the gears of a machine. Slow, deliberate, unstoppable once set in motion. I rubbed the scar on my hip, the one from the accident that ended my career. Feels strange, I muttered, fighting again after all these years. Different battlefield, same rules. Proof, precision, patience. Tommy grinned. You built highways, brother. This time we're building a case. I chuckled under my breath, the first real laugh I'd had in weeks. You always did make revenge sound like a construction project. Because it is, he said, layer by layer until the whole damn thing collapses on the guy who thought he owned it. I flipped Margaret's ledger to a new page and wrote at the top, to restore what's ours. The ink bled slow into the paper, a promise more than a plan. Tommy's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then looked up with a sly grin. Well, would you look at that? A friend at the IRS just texted me. Says she's seen your file, and the withdrawals under your name raised red flags. I sat up straight. Red flags? Big ones, Tommy said, standing. And she's willing to talk. He pocketed the phone and clapped my shoulder. Tomorrow, we're taking your wife's ledger and heading to the IRS. Time to make Brad's lies official, on record. The Federal Benefits Office sat 3 stories tall, beige and silent, like every government building built to bore you into giving up. Tommy and I walked through the metal detectors with nothing but Margaret's ledger and a determination I hadn't felt in months. At the records counter, an older woman looked up over her glasses. "Name and social security?" "George Miller," I said, sliding my ID across. "I need a certified copy of my pension agreement. Original filing date, 1993. She clicked through the system, humming under her breath. A few minutes later, she disappeared into the archive room and came back with a thick folder stamped confidential. "Here it is," she said, pressing it onto the counter. "Original signature verified, no addendums filed. You're listed as the sole beneficiary." I ran my hand over the embossed seal, the red ink bright as blood. There it was, my proof, my name in Margaret's handwriting beside mine, her last signature still clean and sure. Tommy grinned. "There's your anchor. He can't rewrite that." We left the building with the folder sealed tight in a plastic sleeve. I hadn't realized how light the air could feel until that moment. For the first time in months, the balance started to tip my way. Later that afternoon, Tommy showed up at my place with a coffee and a sly smile. "Got something else for you." He held up a small USB drive. "What's that?" "New recording," he said, plugging it into the laptop. Brad's voice came through clear, cocky, careless. "Yeah, I've already got his pension under control. The bank still thinks he's managing it, but once the next deposit hits, I'll move it offshore. Easy money. The old man's too sentimental to ever check." The sound of his laughter made my stomach twist. But this time, anger felt cleaner, focused. Tommy leaned over my shoulder. "That's strike 1 recorded yesterday. Keep stacking these, and by the time he blinks, we'll have the IRS, the bank, and his own words against him." I closed the laptop, slid the deed and USB into Margaret's ledger. Then let's make sure he never sees the next one coming. Tommy's phone buzzed again. He read the message and grinned. "You might want to wear something decent tomorrow, George. IRS wants a word. With both of us." Lisa called that morning, voice careful, the kind people use when they're trying not to start a fire. "Brad wants to clear the air," she said. "Dinner tonight. Just family." Just family. I almost laughed. When I showed up that evening, I carried Margaret's ledger under one arm and the sealed folder from the pension office under the other. Brad met me at the door, wearing that fake host grin. "George, glad you came. Maybe now we can stop the confusion." "Sure," I said, walking past him. "Let's clear the air." The table was set for 6. Lisa, her 2 kids, Brad's sister, and her husband, all waiting. Brad poured himself a glass of wine, looking like a man about to deliver a sermon. "Everyone's been worried about George," he began smoothly. "There's been some misunderstanding about the pension paperwork. He's been through a lot since Margaret passed, and stress can do strange things." I set the ledger down and slowly slid the certified pension file across the table. "You want to talk misunderstandings? Start with this." He looked down, frown tightening. The county seal gleamed under the light. "Where'd you get that?" "From the Federal Benefits Office," I said. "Stamped, sealed, and signed. No cosigner, no amendment. My name's the only one on it. Care to explain why you told the bank otherwise?" For a second, his mask slipped, just a flicker of panic behind the smile. Then it came back, smoother than before. "That's outdated. George, you've forgotten we updated your records last year." Lisa blinked. "Updated? I don't remember that." Brad chuckled softly. Of course you don't. It was handled electronically. Remember when Dad was in the hospital and George couldn't get to the office? He asked me to take care of it. That's a lie, I said flatly. I never asked you for anything. Brad leaned back, voice calm but condescending. I'm not the enemy here. I was trying to help you. But if you keep making false accusations, the pension office could suspend your account entirely. Lisa looked between us, torn. Brad, is any of this true? He reached for her hand. Sweetheart, your brother's tired, confused. You've seen it. Her eyes darted to me. George? I opened the folder fully, showing the embossed seal, the date, the untouched signature. Margaret signed this with me the year before she died. Every dime of that pension is still ours. He forged my name to steal it. Brad's knuckles whitened on his wineglass. That's enough. You think a few papers will change what people believe? They already think you're losing it, George. The room went still. Lisa's hand slipped from his. I leaned forward, voice low. Then I guess it's time they hear what you sound like when you think no one's listening. 2 days after that dinner, Lisa showed up at my porch looking pale. She held her phone out like it was a snake. George, she said quietly, I need you to explain this. On her screen was an email thread. From George Miller, georgium@outlook.com. To Bradley Carter, bb.carterfinance@fairfield.net. Brad, go ahead and move the pension money like we discussed. Don't tell Lisa. She'd only worry. Thanks, George. My stomach dropped. That's not mine. Lisa's eyes glistened. Brad forwarded it to me this morning. He said you were covering yourself after the withdrawals. I took the phone, scrolling through. The grammar, the tone. It wasn't me. It was too neat, too polite. Lisa, I don't even use that email address. Margaret made me a Gmail when she was alive. I've never touched Outlook. Before she could answer, a government sedan pulled up by the fence. A woman stepped out. Late 40s, sharp suit, badge clipped to her belt. Mr. Miller? She called. Agent Caroline Collins, IRS Fraud Division. We spoke on the phone yesterday. Lisa blinked. IRS? Agent Collins climbed the porch steps, handing me a folder. We've been monitoring irregular withdrawals from multiple pension-linked accounts. Your name came up. So did Mr. Bradley Carter's. I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements and transaction logs. Every transfer stamped with the same IP address. Brad's home network. Lisa's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, Agent Collins continued, her tone clipped and professional. We also obtained server logs for that email. It originated from a private account registered to Mr. Carter. Whoever sent it tried to spoof your name but failed to mask the source address. She glanced at me, then at Lisa. In plain English, he faked it. Lisa turned away, tears slipping down her cheeks. He said he was protecting us, that you were losing control. I set the folder down and met her eyes. He's not protecting anyone, Lisa. He's robbing us blind. Agent Collins nodded, and we're about ready to make that official. But I'll need your help, Mr. Miller. There's one more piece we need before we can issue a warrant. His voice confirming intent. I felt something shift inside me. The same steel that used to hold a jackhammer steady all day. You'll have it, I said. He won't see it coming. Collins smiled faintly. Good, because tomorrow night, we're crashing his investment seminar, and we're bringing a recorder. The so-called investment seminar was held at a rented hotel ballroom. Round tables, cheap banners, and too much cologne. Brad stood on stage, sleeves rolled up, microphone clipped to his shirt like he was a celebrity instead of a thief. He was mid-speech when Agent Collins, Tommy, and I slipped quietly into the back row. When you trust people who understand the market, Brad was saying, you don't just preserve your wealth, you multiply it. I'd heard enough smooth talk in my life to know the sound of a lie practiced in the mirror. Collins leaned close and whispered, "Wait for the cue." After the presentation, Brad mingled with a few investors near the refreshments table. I stepped forward, cane tapping the floor, voice carrying across the room. "Multiply it, huh? How about explain where my pension went first?" Brad froze, wine glass halfway to his lips. For a moment, he looked like a magician caught halfway through the trick. "George," he said softly, "we shouldn't do this here." "Oh, I think here's perfect," I said, loud enough for the room to hear. "Especially since these folks might want to know what kind of investments you make, with stolen federal benefits." A few heads turned. Brad's mask cracked. "You've lost it," he hissed. "This obsession." Agent Collins stepped forward, badge gleaming under the light. "Actually, Mr. Carter, we found something that might help clear up his obsession." She pulled out a small recorder and hit play. The room went silent as Brad's voice filled the air. "Yes, I'm the authorized party for George Miller's pension. Go ahead and process the transfer. He's in poor health, can't come in himself. If the system flags it, I'll fax over the signed document." The banker's voice replied, "You're sure you have his consent?" Brad's voice again. Smooth, confident, guilty, positive. Old man barely remembers what day it is. The audio ended. No one breathed. Even the air conditioning seemed to stop. Brad's face drained of color. It's taken out of context." Collins held up another sheet. Transaction logs, signatures, timestamps. "Context doesn't change the fact that every withdrawal traced directly to your IP address, or that this recording came from the bank's own compliance system." Tommy grinned, arms crossed. "Looks like your context's about to come with handcuffs." Lisa appeared near the door, eyes red, shaking her head. "Brad, how could you?" Brad stumbled for words. "Lisa, But Collins was already signaling to the two uniformed officers at the door. As they moved toward him, I stepped closer and said, steady as bedrock, "Tomorrow's your birthday, right? Guess the IRS just brought your gift." Brad's birthday party was supposed to be his victory lap. The house was lit up like a showroom, caterers, champagne, and a banner that read, "To New Beginnings." The irony almost made me laugh. Lisa had invited me, though her voice cracked when she did. "He says he wants to apologize," she'd whispered. "Maybe this can end quietly." Quiet wasn't in the cards. When Tommy pulled up beside me, headlights cut across the driveway, I saw Agent Collins step out of her sedan behind us. She nodded once, professional and cold. "You ready, Mr. Miller?" "Been ready since the day he forged my name," I said. Inside, laughter filled the room. Brad was mid-toast, champagne glass raised high. "To family, to trust, and to a future that finally pays off." The crowd cheered. That's when I walked in. The music faltered, glasses lowered. Brad's smile twitched. "George," he said, tone too sweet. "What are you doing here?" I held up a thick folder, the pension deed, the certified withdrawal logs, the IRS report. "Bringing your future." Tommy moved to the stereo and hit play. Brad's voice boomed from the speakers, his own confession looping clear as crystal. "Old man barely remembers what day it is." Every guest froze. Lisa's hand went to her mouth. The sound played again, louder this time, followed by Agent Collins stepping forward, badge raised. "Bradley Carter," she said, voice cutting through the murmurs. You are under federal investigation for pension fraud, forgery, and embezzlement of government funds. The room erupted. Shocked whispers, clinking glasses, someone gasping. Brad's face turned gray. Lisa, baby, it's not what it sounds like. She stepped back. It sounds exactly like what it is. I set the papers on the buffet table beside the cake, tapping the embossed seal with one finger. That's the truth, in ink. And this, I pointed toward the speakers, is the truth in your own voice. 2 agents moved in, cuffing him while his guests stared in disbelief. Brad didn't fight. He just sagged, the weight of it finally crushing the salesman grin off his face. As they led him toward the door, I caught his eye one last time. You tried to write me out of my life, Brad. Guess the story had a different ending. He didn't say a word, just lowered his head and disappeared into the flashing blue lights outside. Lisa came to stand beside me, voice trembling. Dad would have been proud of you, she whispered. I looked toward the night sky, the porch lights glinting off the fields beyond. So would Margaret, I said softly. She always believed in keeping receipts. Tommy nudged me with a grin. You know, he said, for an old guy, you throw one hell of a party. I laughed for the first time in months. Yeah, let's call it a retirement celebration. The right kind this time. The following spring, the checks started coming in again. This time with my name spelled right and no one else's printed underneath. The pension office called it reinstatement. I called it justice. Most mornings now, I sit on the porch with a cup of black coffee and the sunrise spilling across Margaret's old rose bushes. The air smells like cut grass and freedom. The kind you earn, not the kind anyone gives you. Brad took a plea deal, 2 years, federal time. Lisa divorced him, sold his car, and sent me half the proceeds without asking. She said she wanted to give back what he took. I told her she already had. She gave me my name back. Tommy still drops by every Sunday, bringing donuts and trouble in equal measure. Agent Collins mailed me a copy of the final report with a sticky note that just said, "You were right all along." I keep it in Margaret's ledger, right beside her signature. The house feels alive again, the kind of quiet that doesn't ache anymore, just rests. I lean back in my chair and look at the sky. We made it, Maggie, I say softly. He tried to bury us in paperwork, but you can't bury truth. It always finds its way through. If you've listened this far, thank you. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? And don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Stories Men U55 America, because stories like mine deserve to be heard.